Hi, I'm Bobby Stanton, and welcome to Guitar Talk.
Hey, Bobby.
Oh,
How are you?
hello.
Hey, everyone. I'm Kim Perlak, the chair of the guitar department at Berklee, and welcome to Coffee Talk. Welcome to one more. We've got Bobby Stanton, professor in the guitar department here. We've got Cheryl Bailey, assistant chair.
Woohoo!
Buddy, happy coffee.
Cheers. And Ian Steed, our senior department coordinator. Hey, Ian.
Hello.
That matching mugs.
Yeah, we all
Ooh,
Yeah, all four.
all
Wow.
four of us. That's amazing. Yeah. Hey, Bobby, what do you have in your mug there? What do you?
Well, today I'm drinking a beverage composed of turmeric and ginger tea. It is
Ooh.
really good. It's really good. I mean, I like coffee too, but I've kind of switched to this. It's extremely healthy and not a lot to do here during the
Does
COVID crisis.
Nope.
does it have some calming properties?
It does, both of those things. Well, it's mostly the ginger. It's not really heavy duty ginger, but it's pretty strong. But the turmeric it's just supposed to be very healthy.
Well, Bobby, is that a pre-made tea or is this something a concoction that you
No,
make?
no, I get it from a store. I don't know if I should say the name of that store, but the initials
No,
are
you can never say
PJ.
it. Don't mention them.
Somebody's got to be paid someplace.
It's very conscientious of you.
Uh,
Oh, that's great. So, Bobby, one of the first things we generally talk about is tell us a little bit about your first days at Berkeley. And I know you had a number of different first days, so you can choose whichever first days you want.
my
But we'd
first
like to get a
day,
sense.
my very first day at Berkeley, I'm from the Midwest. I'll start it like this. And it's very flat there. You can see a long way. They say if you look at the horizon and squint really hard, you can see the back of your own head. That's how flat it is where I'm from, right? And so I moved from there, a very rural setting. First, I moved to Nashville, and I lived there for 3 years. And then I moved to Boston. And the thing is, I was so lost the entire time because, like how New York City is, you know where
Hmm.
anything is, you know where you are.
Hmm.
But how the signs are and everything, I was just not used to that. So I spent the first day trying to find Berkeley. And so then I had to do the audition, and I had one of those PV amps, like a PV one about that big. And they said that I had to go to Park Street, right? So I got off at the park basically down by the combat zone with my PV amp and my
Oh,
guitar, and I
no.
walked all the way to Berkeley. So that was my first day. It took all day to get there. But once I was there, it was like home. I've always loved Berkeley. It was just so wonderful. But it was a hard first day for me. Like it hard.
Wow.
My fingers were like this much longer. But I mean, that's just because I didn't know any better, you know.
What did it feel like on the days that you came back to be a professor? Because that happened to you twice.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, like, did you have that same sense that you felt like you're home right away? Or
Yeah.
how did that feel?
Well, I have always felt that way. I mean, I moved here and I was going to move back to Nashville, but I just loved Berkeley so much, because, I spent most of my life trying to become famous or something like that. And then I came to Berkeley, and there were all these people who could be so famous. They were the most brilliant musical minds I've ever met, and they decided not to do that.
Mhm.
I'm talking like, John Laporta and Charlie Banacus and people like that. They were so brilliant that that's what they wanted to do, and they became my heroes. And then that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be like those guys and
Mm.
just be a teacher and be a brilliant, everything else that I am.
Mm. So talk about that for just a minute as a follow-up. Like in your mind, what does that mean? Like what did you choose when you chose, like to quote you, not to be famous, and you chose to be a teacher and a
Well,
professor? What did that open up for you as an artist and a musician and a person?
to begin with, I think it was just meeting people that didn't care about that stuff. They just cared about the aesthetic of music, and that's all they cared about. And um, I mean, there's a lot of reasons to become famous and do all those things. Um, I don't know, just I guess for me it was just I went away and I came back. I mean, the first time I was here and I did great, at Berklee, and I graduated and I was a big shot in my own mind. And so then I got a job teaching. It was like, oh my God, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. And so I mean, I just have always loved it. And when I became a teacher, it's like even more lessons. I've learned so much since I became a teacher because I have to. For instance, this isn't a plug, but have you seen this? It's oh my God. You know how Barry Harris, you can't understand what he's talking about most of the time
Is
on
who
YouTube?
is that? Who?
King Stone.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen that. Oh, I'm gonna check that
Oh
out.
my God, because it's for guitar. It's got grids and everything in it. So anyway, that's what I've been doing, and it's like mind-boggling. I can't. This book has hit me in the head like for the last week when falling asleep. It's just mind-boggling.
So it's giving you a chance then to just keep learning.
To keep learning, I'm constantly learning, and that's all I care about, pretty much. So.
Oh, that's great.
Talking about music, and so if you like music, I mean, it's like Christmas every day at Berklee. I mean, it's like you're always talking to the brilliant people with the newest things that are coming out. So like this book, you know. Anyway, I mean,
So Bobby, I've always thought of your playing you bring together a tremendous amount of influences. And yet you've really been able to come up with a style that's very distinctively you. I mean, whenever you play on the faculty concerts or people hear you, you're like, oh, that's Bobby Stanton. And yet there's so many different things, obviously, that you're excited about learning all the time, and you're bringing that together. How do you go about that? Like, what's your philosophy, like both conceptually and practically, to bring in all kinds of different ideas, but still make them your own?
well, to begin with, it's kind of my job, as you probably know. um, to learn all this stuff, because I've had, like, with this book that I'm apparently pushing, but I'm not really. I have a whole bunch of students that are always trying to figure out what is he talking about, blah blah, and so we'll watch it. So I kind of have to learn what this means and be able to explain it to people. And there's this other guy. Now I forget his name. It's got a G in it. And you know how you play harmonics, like with one hand or whatever. He plays them with one hand, like that. Right? I'm sucking at this, but right? I forget the guy's name, but he's unbelievable, right? And so he plays his stuff that just just constant harmonics. And so what I have had to do, you laugh at me, but I took a Sharpie. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, I can see that you drew on the strings.
Where all the harmonics were. Right, so you know where they, you can kind of tell where they are, where the frets are, but you can't tell with a darn bond down here. And so that's what I have been trying to do, all that crazy stuff with that this other guy is, because I have a student who can do it, so I have to figure out how to do it and explain it or something. So that's how I pull stuff in, not because I'm always forced, but just because I'm always interested in. I think pretty much that's all I want to do.
That's great. Cheryl, I'm wondering what's on your mind right now.
Well, one of the biggest influences on me when I was a kid was the Velvet Touch of Lenny Breau. Everything about that recording.
Yeah.
But also I wanted to say what Kim said too about you are so open to so many styles that come out of you, and you've mastered them at such a high level. Whether you're playing, the different things with the harmonics, and also harmonically speaking, like, because you are so fluent in all the Nashville stuff and the country stuff, but when you play jazz, you are a real jazz player harmonically. So anyway, I would love to know just your thoughts about, I mean, not to nerd out on Lenny Breau, but you would be the person I would say is an expert on it that I could get close to. And, like my understanding of, he was obsessed with Bill Evans, and it was that thing of putting the third and the seventh on the lower string, but he had that incredible facility
Yeah.
He really did sound as close to a piano trio as you can, like two great guitar players playing, but
Yeah.
one person. So now, is it true you hung out with him? I know he was, you know, not a stable person and all that, but he was.
Yeah. Well,
Just
he
I
was.
don't know, just whatever thoughts you have about that you could share about.
Yeah. When I lived in Nashville, I took lessons from him. And I would go see him all the time. He used to play at this club, and I kid you not, $2 cover charge, and you could see him in a room full of guitar players with their mouths open, for $2. And so I did that for a while, and so that's why I know, as much as I know, and I know like this much, of what Lenny Breau knew. He was unbelievable. Just a slight aside, they just released a whole bunch of stuff. I have it if you want it. Of new film, not film, but it was videotaped of all these clinics and everything. It's astounding. Oh my God, it's astounding. And he came and he would always visit Berklee. And there used to be a guy at Berklee called Bill Hill. He was my English teacher, actually, and he was really good friends with Lenny. So every time Lenny came around, he lived in Maine, so he was around a lot. He would do a clinic, and so you can hear all my old teachers and things at these clinics talking about chords and play all the things you are. It's so cool. So I got all these new things from him, and so on the break, I can't wait. That's all I'm gonna do. I have all these new. Nobody's ever seen these before. Actually, a strange aside, I'm a really good friends with Lenny's daughter, Emily. So we were going to go visit Lenny's brother, Denny, who's a friend of mine. And so we went, and she had just gotten these from Bill Hill up in Maine, and she was freaking about it. And so now they're out, so you can actually get them if you know somebody.
One thing I think that students always kind of ask or want to know about is how do you become so good at all the things that you're doing? How do you get to know people who are going to be like your, for lack of a better word, connections for your life? And I think one thing that's coming out already from just listening to you talk so far is that you are incredibly excited about learning new things all the time. Like you're just thrilled about it. Like you can't stop, he can't stop. And then that joy and that interest is what connects you to other people, whether they're farther along and better than you, whether or not they may be famous or not famous, or but it's like you have the connection point literally of what you do. And so in some ways your career development is working on what you love to do.
Yeah. I'm not trying to get a record deal. I do have a good record, though, that'll be coming out shortly.
So that's the thing, right? Because you do have a good record that's coming out. Because I think that's the thing. Like people are saying, how do I develop my musical community, my professional life? And it's something that maybe the planning is more working on your craft and working on what you love. Yes?
Well, I've thought about this a lot, like for whatever reason lately. And it's like I really never thought of doing anything else. I can't imagine me doing something else. I would hate it. Actually, my father had a construction business, so I was in the construction business until I left home. And I could have done great at that, but I can't imagine. And you know what makes me think about this is people are always saying to students, "Well, you better get something to fall back on." It's like there's no falling back with anything, And I never thought about something to fall. What does that even mean? I don't care if I fall back. I'll just go get another gig. So I just never have considered anything else, and I've spent my life trying to tell people not, to do what I did, to not fall into that trap, because we all know people who should have stayed musicians and now they're incredibly unhappy, neurosurgeons or senators or something.
Well, Bobby, it's interesting too, though, because when you talk about someone famous, I'm putting air quotes for those who are listening, right? I mean, we all know those people, and they, or we've been side persons for those people, and they still get home from a world tour and they're still looking for their next gig. It's not like, like all of that's a bit of smoke and mirrors as
Yeah.
well. And if that is really what's driving you, you're going to be really disappointed. You're
Yeah.
going to be, like if you don't have that love there, and the love isn't, and the passion isn't driving you for the pure experience of it,
Yeah.
you're not
Amen.
you're not going to make it. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
because people who are going for that, it's smoke and mirrors. It goes away immediately, and the couple of times, like 2 or 3 times, I've had the opportunity to be kind of famous, and the thing that drives me the most crazy about that is the way other people are, how other people start treating you.
Mm.
I was in a really good band once, and so people were constantly trying to use me as a connection to get to places, and everybody starts getting really phony, and all these other weird people start showing up, and so I'd rather just sit in my room, transcribe Lenny.
That's really interesting. I mean, there was one time when I first came to Berkeley where I met one of our sort of guitar icon colleagues, and he and I ended up getting really dorky and talking about right hand guitar technique. And it was so great because he was so interested, and he was so, and it just shows you like we're all the same if you're a guitar player, and all he wanted to do was talk about like, well, how do I get my A finger to do what I wanted to do, and wait a minute, like, and it was so great. And then when we were finished, it was time to go, he just said, like, this was the greatest thing, like, to come to Berkeley. Like, this is what I hoped, and to get to talk to other musicians and hang out. And then he had to go do his sort of famous person things. And
Yeah,
that was not as much fun. So, but I think like everyone has to find their place, right? So maybe like someone who's listening to this will
yeah,
have a
maybe.
career like that. And then it would be good to know also when that happens that you're still a guitar player and you can still go in your room and be excited about learning new things, and
Yeah,
be inspired, and make some real true friends who are musicians and not just connections.
yeah, yeah,
Ian, I feel like this ties into something that you generally think about in these interviews.
Yeah, so there's a question that I ask everybody here. So get ready, Bobby.
I'm ready.
uh, the question is like, as somebody who's been a student and a teacher and sort of been on both sides of the desk,
That's good.
what's a thing that you've noticed that if a student comes in, there's like a blind spot, both maybe you've experienced it and then as a teacher you've sort of realized it, but like, what's something that a student comes in and doesn't realize they should be asking? Like, what's a question that they should be asking but they might not even think to ask?
Exactly. That's what we are. That's what we're doctors. We look at these people, and then we diagnose them, and then we give them the medicine. Play 3-octave harmonic major scales, things like that. And so the only thing, I mean, people coming and asking you things are those are just flyby questions, and that's one thing. But most of my students, I get to know them, and I love them, man. I mean, I have students; they're like my children, and I, am in touch with them, and I help them on a lot of levels. So there are a lot of the hard part that has taken me so long to understand is that there are people on the spectrum, more parentheses, and sometimes it takes me a while to figure out what they don't know what their learning problem is. And so there's things you can say, how about this, try this, or, and try to find out what works best for them. But it's really like being a doctor. It's like, I think being a teacher like this, we got to figure out what they need to do. And it's not like what they need to do. That's easy. It's more like why they're not doing it. Why haven't you already done this? It's just like me. I mean, why haven't I already done Barry Harris? The people who are extremely successful and talented I'm thinking of somebody like Julian Lodge. That guy is a freak. I mean, I have never seen anything like that. The way he moves and stuff. I mean, I think if he came, I heard a story. Mick gave him some really hard book to learn or something when he was a student that it took, everybody 6 months to learn, and he came back next week and had it all learned, and or like Mike Stern studying with Charlie Banakis. He no matter what you did with Charlie Banakis, he'd say something like, yeah, well, Mike Stern did that like about 10 times faster, things like that, so I'm not sure if I'm exactly answering your question, but what I think is that it's kind of like you're analyzing them, and you say, how about this, and you see what they know, and then you see what they're supposed to learn. And then the problem is, it's not a problem, but it's then the real thing is motivating them, because it's easy enough. Here's the short answer that I've finally come to. It's easy enough to figure out what people need to do. It's trying to figure out how to have them do it, or what's stopping them from doing it, or what works best. Do I scream at this person? I'm not going to do that. To scare them into, some people that's what works best, or really lots of pressure or no pressure. So that's really the trick for me. Wow, I'm starting to pontificate now.
No, I think that's great. That's come up in several of these conversations, like the difference between musical problems and non-musical problems. Right? I mean,
it's usually the non-musical problems. It really is, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, so given that that's your sort of philosophy of teaching, do you remember specific times, either as a student or like later in your career as an artist, where you felt like you made a breakthrough? Mm-hmm. Was it in a lesson? Was something someone said to you, or an experience you had? Like, could you choose one or two of those and sort of take us through them?
Okay, I have a great one. I was such a smart aleck, right? So I knew this song. I'm embarrassed to play this in front of you, but yeah, I was like, everybody thought I was so wonderful in my room full of people. And so somebody said, oh, play this. John Laporta came in, so one of my heroes. And he said, play this for John. And I totally choked. I could not play, and this hardly ever happens to me. I was having an out-of-body experience, laughing at myself. So he said to me, and it was a huge moment, he looked at me in the eyes, he said, get over yourself. So every time I start feeling like I'm going to choke, I think, get over yourself. And I laugh a little. So that was a big moment. And then there was one with Bill Levitt. He looked up from his smoky, I said, how am I going to learn all this junk? And he looked up from his smoky, in room, and he looked at me and said, Bob, there's only 3 scales: harmonic, melodic minor, and major. That's all you need to know. You can play anything with that. And I thought that was a big breakthrough too.
So, okay, I want to go back to the first one because that's so interesting. Like what John saw is something like he saw into something that people generally associate with the opposite problem. Like you think like when you choke, it's because of insecurity. Yeah. But when you choke, it could be that you just need to get over yourself and
you need to get
over. Yeah. What you're trying to project, right?
Yeah. It was just, I don't know how, it was just a big moment,
I have a question on that thing, because you play so much solo guitar.
Play with me.
But I mean, and this could be, though not necessarily for solo guitar, but I always just feel that is a discipline to, sit down, and whether it's from memory, from beginning, or you're improvising or mixture. But anyway, do you ever experience performance anxiety or nerves, and do you have a process to deal with that, or was it just that sort of getting snapped out of it stayed with you, that you can call that up wherever you go? But yeah, because I think this is a really big issue for our students, and it, when I've talked about with students or whatever, they're like, oh, that's really a thing. So I'd love to hear your thoughts or how you work with your students on that.
I teach ear training 1 as well, and talk about choke. I mean, they have to wave their hands and sing solfege syllables. I mean, it's got to be stressful. And so I've spent a lot of time on that. And what has helped me a little bit is understanding what it is. It's a fight or flight response, which makes total sense, And the thing is, the big fear is that you're being judged by everybody, right? Quote unquote, get over yourself. You're not being judged by everybody to begin with. It's all in your head. But it's a fight or flight response. So what happens is you start sweating and you start, getting ready to either kill something or run away from something that's going to kill you. So it doesn't really work very well for music. Depends on the game. So it just knowing that, you know, um, just knowing that information, that that's what it is, I can kind of step back a little bit and look at that. And the other thing is, we have a mutual friend, I think, Eva Benica.
Yeah.
And she's great at this. She'll take a breath. If she feels nervous or something, she'll just take a huge breath and go, and just look at the audience. You know, I don't know if I could do that. I always have to make jokes or something, and she does that, and it totally calms her down, and she can play. So there's that's a good one. Is the breathing exercises for me if I do that. But the thing is, it never it never comes up where you think it's going to. I played a radio show that was intergalactic, this big radio show, and so it never happened that I would get nervous. But one time, for no reason, it's like, oh my God, every person on the planet is going to hear me playing in a few seconds, and it's like, so I was freaking out. And the things that I used were breathing, and then I also had I could look back, step out of myself, and say, what an idiot! What are you doing? You know, kind of laugh at myself, and that helps too. So the best thing is to not care.
You know, I've seen you do that. I've seen you do that, like on stage when we do the faculty concerts. You'll be sitting there, you'll have your guitar, and you'll say hello to everybody, and you'll say, oh, well, you know, I don't, and then you'll just play this kind of remarkably deep, crazy thing, especially when you play, like you'll play something really beautiful, and then you'll play something incredibly fast. And so it does seem to work for you that you know how to use your time before you play to check in with your body, and move around or let some tension go and make sure you have some breath in your lungs.
Yeah. That's it. It's a physical thing, and if you're having a physical response where it's not even necessary. So, yeah, there's the humor part of it as well. I mean, I do laugh at myself when this happens. It doesn't happen very often anymore, and I think the reason it doesn't happen is because I'm really confident in what I'm about to do. I played whatever song 1,000,000 times, and so if people were shooting at me, I'd still be able to play. That's the game we were talking about.
We won't try that. We're not going to test that
No.
in the guitar department. Ian, what's on your mind?
I actually remember there was a faculty concert where that exact thing happened, and there was like a delegation of German diplomats in the audience. Do you remember that?
Yes,
I remember that was terrifying. We were in the David Friend Hall, and
they all came at the last minute. The whole delegation, the entire German Parliament delegation to the UN was in Boston, and they all sat in a row, and they were almost dressed the same. And it was right at our faculty, and that concert was packed. It was packed. And so it ended, because of the German delegation, it ended up being like standing room only. I know Cheryl's laughing because like it sounds silly to say that, but, and then like it was, remember we had assigned Max and Camilla from the work study. These great young musicians had to like communicate with them. And, yeah, I remember exactly that concert.
Yeah, everyone was kind of like, holy crap. Like usually like we have this concert for like students and other faculty members, and we all just go like, oh yeah, great, cool. But then there's like all these like, you know, suited, stone-faced like German diplomats in the audience. And then out comes Bobby Stanton, and you're just like, oh, okay, here, I'll just play the guitar. And you just like destroyed it. And everyone in the audience was just like, holy crap. And then all these German people were like stone-faced, and they all just like, yes.
And then they were filming it. Remember that? They're filming it.
I wish I had been more in touch. I would have said, calm down, you know.
Yeah, that was really fun. We hadn't had a UN delegation before. That was great.
To do that.
So like your sense of like humor and sort of casualness about it really just brought the energy like right back down to just like, no, this is cool.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any better. Speaking of quotations, my band, I have a name for my band. It's Bobby Stanton and his so-called friends.
Oh, I like that.
Here's my so-called friends. So, see.
So is that the new record? Is that with that band?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Actually,
What
that
kind of,
was a whole bunch of people on the record, but it was going to be just before the COVID. I had gigs lined up and rehearsals, all this stuff, and then, oh well, we'll take a vacation, I guess.
yeah, that's great. What kind of tunes do you have on there?
It's a variety. I have a couple of kind of bluegrassy tunes, that stuff, but most of it's pretty hardcore, jazz stuff. Anthony Cox, that bass player, he's my best bro, and he's the bass player, so it's that kind of stuff.
You know, I have a question for you. Um, you know, coming from your student days at Berklee and those associations. Now I know John LaPorter was one of your teachers, and we've had some amazing conversations about his philosophy. But some of those connections that you still have today professionally. So thinking about those times at Berklee, the people that you really ended up with, your mates, your buddies, that you end up playing music, and then how that moves forward with your career. And it seems like you have a strong connection to a lot of those folks still today.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, if you're just nice to people, then just as your life goes on. I mean, I have as many students that are now famous or whatever, are completely connected, as I have had friends. Um, One of my friends was a guy named Tom Shimshak. Tom Shimshak was my teacher. Tom Hambridge was a friend of mine, and we were students together. And we wrote songs, and we were in a band for a long time. And now he's a pretty big producer and stuff in Nashville. So it's just strange. I mean, here you are hanging out with somebody, and then they're like famous, And it's just it's really networking. Being nice to other people is hugely important, in our business. If you're a jerk, everybody finds out. And being a jerk is worse than not being able to play most of the time.
Can you talk a little bit more about what the networking in the way that you just described it?
Hmm.
Because I think you're really talking about building good relationships with people, as opposed to this artificial thing that people think like, oh, it's who you know, and I want to make sure I know the right people. You're talking about something that's a little more organic and holistic, aren't you?
Yeah, friends. I have a friend named Daryl Scott. If you know Daryl Scott, we just played on a lot of bands together here. And Daryl Scott, he's a big songwriter now. He's in a band with Robert Plant, that band. So he just plays with everybody, and and we were just good friends. And so we agreed on the same thing. It's like how weird people get when you start to get famous. And so he got really famous, and so he doesn't have that many friends. He's got a lot of acquaintances that are trying to use him for a connection, but he doesn't have. I'm still his friend. He texts me all the time. So, and we've always had that relationship. So I think it's just really about building relationships. You can try to just be the business, person, and do all that stuff. Most of the time, people like that are annoying to people, you know. But so you can
Yeah.
do that, and some people are really successful at that. It sounds like I'm really dissing it, but I mean, some people are really successful at that. My friend Tom Hambridge is really good at that. Um, but he doesn't play music as good as me. So I'd rather do that. I keep going back, don't I?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, there's always something that it seems like there's always something you're getting into.
Yeah. Oh man, that Lenny Breau stuff. I can't wait for the break.
Oh,
It's just
that's so good.
phenomenal. I'll show it to you. It's indescribable. If you like the Velvet Touch, it's like three times that level, and he's improvising it on video and laughing. He's just. I can't wait to do that. All that stuff.
Bobby, what's your advice to students who come to Berkeley and love Berkeley because they can do a bunch of different things? Like, what's your practical advice to them in terms of like approaching different things, but also making sure you're going deep enough?
Yep. Follow your bliss, as Joseph Campbell would say. That, but the thing is, just you have to be a musician, or probably a person. I don't know other than musician stuff, but you have to be flexible. Life is gonna today, this minute, you're gonna get confronted with a set of decisions you have to make, and so you have to make that decision, and slowly, you make those decisions. So when I moved Boston to go to Berklee, I wanted to write strings. I wanted to learn how to write strings, right? Figure that with me, think of me anyway. And because in recording, because they used live strings everywhere. Well, shortly after that, synthesizers were invented or something. And so those people were all out of work. And so I realized I really didn't like all that classical junk anyway. String
Hey.
I love classical music, like guitar, but I mean like writing strings and that weird stuff. It wasn't quite as interesting to me as playing like Lenny or something like that. So you have to kind of follow your own thing because you're always going to get confronted with a set of circumstances you have to decide what to do in, and then whichever way you go. And if you hit a bump there, then you got to go this way, then you got to go this way, and you just make it through. That's
Right. So your foundation ultimately has to be super strong. And so that should be grounded in what brings you back to the instrument all the time.
Yeah. Because my favorite thing to do is after I'm done with this, I'm going to go back into this book because I just started reading about minor 2/5s. Well, he doesn't call them. It's so stupid, I know.
No, it's not stupid. It's amazing. That's really great. That's great. Ian, what else do you want to know? Oh, Cheryl, you've got
Well, I
something.
was going to say, yesterday we did a coffee talk with Guy Van Duzer, who's also a Joseph Campbell.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he quoted some Joseph Campbell. So, but anyway, he said something really funny. He said, "Yeah, when you look back at your career, it looks like everything was so perfectly planned out, when really it was you in this way, say, following your bliss or following your passion and your convictions,
Yeah.
and having a lot of faith." That's what my friend Jean Bertoncini always says. It's an act of faith. But,
Yeah.
looking backwards, it goes, oh, yeah, almost like you figured that out, but you were just
Yeah.
doing your thing, right?
Yep. That's it, isn't it? I mean, I was just talking about that. I lost a gig. It was a really good gig, and I really wanted it, and somebody else got it, and they suck. But because I didn't get that gig, then I got all these other great things in my life,
Yeah. I completely agree with that. And there have been different times too where things on the surface, at least for me, didn't seem like they were working out. But there was something about what I was doing where I was like, I know this sounds crazy, but I believe in this. Like, I know this is it. And then it might not be happening right now, but something has to come from this.
Yeah. The only consistent thing between all successful people is that they persisted until they became whatever it was they wanted to be, right? Successful. So that's it. You just have to have the vision, I think. And the vision changes a lot. I mean, for me, I go, oh, that's great. That's not really what I wanted. And then, so.
Yeah. Ian, what are you thinking about? You've got that look on your face.
Oh, I always have that look. No, that's interesting. I guess I really relate to that, like, kind of floating around, because I think in that way, I think so many of us who have come to Berklee, we love so many different kinds of music.
Yeah.
But also like having both very particular but also very broad tastes, right? And
Yeah.
I took your Lenny Breau lab, actually.
I remember
I
that.
loved that
Yes.
class.
Yeah.
And I remember it was like, you had to take us through all different kinds of ways of playing the guitar, from
to get to be able to explain what Lenny.
yeah, and it's like it's all good whether you're looking at like like a Charlie Christian or Bill Evans transcription, or you're looking at Elizabeth Cotton, you know what I mean? And to like take these two disparate and sort of unrelated seeming worlds and then put them together into something that like respects both traditions, really is like, it's both fascinating. It's like, I think why we love, music like that, but also I think it like kind of embodies a lot of the music that we sort of pursue here at Berklee,
That's it. We're in this pool. This is the most rare pool in the world. It really is.
Bobby, to that end, do you have advice for us as we're trying to manage the ship, from your perspective? what should we be thinking about, do you think?
The guitar art
Yeah,
department?
like me and Cheryl and Ian, like
Oh,
just us in the coffee talk.
oh, no, no, just stay healthy. Oh my God, that's all, it's like all I worry about is somebody getting sick and here getting a letter or something that, you're gone or something. That's all you, just stay healthy. Yeah, we'll almost through this. As
Yeah.
far as driving the bus, guiding the ship, or whatever. Jeez, I don't know. You're doing such a good job. Um, I, um, I would have to think about this. I mean, I always I tell you the things I want, and then you just either say that's crazy or else we do them. So I mean, I don't.
Well, to your point, what are some of the things you're doing to stay healthy and to stay positive in this time of adaptability and transition and all through the pandemic? Like, do you have advice for the people listening about just kind of from your perspective what you're doing?
This is going to pass. This is going to go. It's like, without getting into too much detail, you can't create that much weird karma and not have to pay for it. So this is going to end at some point, and our lives will return to normal. And so, if I had advice to give anyone, I would say do what I'm doing, which is I'm playing 12 hours a day, and I'm learning so much crap. So that keeps me mentally healthy, and also I have exercise implements that I exercise, and I try to be healthy
Yeah.
physically as well. So if I can be healthy physically and play guitar 12 hours a day, that's it. I don't care about anything else.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good way to almost wrap it up. Cheryl, you have any final thoughts there?
No, but thanks for sharing all your excitement and joy for learning and for teaching. Now I'm like, okay, what am I going to study today?
I
Did I
know.
work out
I'm
yet
telling you.
today? Yeah, that Barry Harris stuff. That's the real deal.
It's so crazy. I just want to take my guitar and show you. Look at this.
Oh, if you're
Cool.
my friend Ronnie Ben-Hur, do you know Ronnie?
I
I'll
know
introduce
this.
you guys because he went to New York specifically to study with Barry. And anyway, I'll hook you guys up.
Oh man, it's just so hard to, he's I understand he's railing against the philosophy of 2-5-2-5-2-5 forever, and so he has all these different weird names. So he doesn't call the two, he calls it the important minor chord. It's like what? And he doesn't call it a two, he calls it a 1-6 on the 5. It's like what? A D minor on the G7 anyway. It's so
Oh,
different weird names for the stuff, but then it's the grids. I'm telling you, you can try. I've been trying to figure that junk out online forever, but it's got grids. My God, it's
oh my
you
God.
just figure it out immediately. You just go, oh, that's all he's talking about.
So excited. I'm getting out my notebook and my listening list and my guitar after this. I'm really excited. Can you believe we have a whole month? We have a month. We have a month
Oh, I
to
know.
practice. This is amazing. Coming up.
Yeah,
Um,
and no gigs outside. I mean, I love gigs. I wish I had,
well,
but it's like sequestered or whatever you call that.
it's
Cloistered.
an opportunity, I think. That's kind of a nice
Yeah.
thing that I'm hearing you say. This is an opportunity to really go deep
Yeah,
and maybe work on some things that you wouldn't have a chance to do
yeah,
because you're playing out a lot. Like what could you do?
yeah. You can draw lines on your guitar. But draw underneath because if you draw on top, then you wipe them off with your finger. But if you write them underneath, you got to see this guy. I'll send you a link. He's unbelievable.
Okay, that sounds great. Ian, what are you thinking about here at the end?
No, yeah, that was just really fascinating. I want to go shed too.
Well, I mean,
It's like when you're fueling this kind of enthusiasm for working hard with this much coffee, I think it's like the perfect combination.
amen.
So, all right. Well, in that case, we're all going to go practice and we're going to the library online and we're going deep. So,
I'm reading some Joseph Campbell. Thanks for reminding me to always.
Oh man, the power of midnight.
man,
Right there.
amazing. Bobby Stanton, thank you for
Thank
being
you.
our guest on Coffee Talk.
This has been Coffee Talk with Bob Stanton.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
And we'll see you next time on Coffee Talk.
Computer string. I'll see you. I miss you guys so much.
Miss you too.
Bye-bye.